Hey, 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 hey. Welcome, welcome, welcome. With all respect and love, I welcome you guys. Thanks for tuning in now, later, somewhere in between now and later,
Mhm.
to another episode of Unfiltered and Intentional. Um, the topic today, talking voting. And I can't
Mhm.
really see your shirt, but I know this one here. What does
Time
your
for
shirt say?
an
What does
update.
yours say?
Time for an update.
Okay, and then mine just says voter. I got the little one a shirt too, and it says future voter. Because definitely we cannot forget
Love
about our
that.
future voters. Yes, yes, yes. Before we get into that topic though, because I know that's all we're talking about, that's all you see on every news channel.
Yes.
Everywhere you go, you see either one of the candidates, and everyone's talking about it. I do want to talk about for 1 second. Protect the Tatas. Breast Cancer Awareness Month was
Yes.
October. October is wrapping up, but I just want to give the shout out to everybody who checks their tatas. They're checking someone else's tatas. Save the
True.
tatas. So I definitely did not want to start talking about voting anything unless we start talking about something that affects lots and lots and thousands and millions of people, because it's definitely something that's very important. And we do need to finally eradicate this. I know they have so many technologies now where they're able to find early detections, but
Mm-hmm.
that's still not enough. We lose so many women and men do also get breast cancer
And
too. It's not as high a rate, but
mm-hmm.
yes, we definitely want to make sure, please do your self checkups. Go ahead, talk to the doctor. If you're kind of a little scared about the doctor, they have all different types of scenarios now, so it's not something I have to go ahead and do just one way, because it could be a little scary. But I definitely, before I start talking about Trump, Biden, Kamala, voting, Republican, da 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 da, da. I wanted to give a shout
Good
out to,
weekend. So you started talking about that stuff.
yeah, breast cancer awareness. So don't forget to
Yeah,
touch
no,
the
that's different.
tatas.
And to piggyback on something you said, Kia, it is scary when you get that. Hey, we're going to send you for additional testing or anything like that. Actually, I don't think I even mentioned this to you before, Kia. It's one of those personal things. Earlier this year, I had a scare and had to go do the mammogram and kind of the
Oh
whole
wow.
nine. And you know what? As scary as it might have been in the days waiting for that appointment, it was such a relief to find out that you know.
Well, and
Oh,
since you're sharing something personal, I'll share something personal, and I promise to get into the comments and also jump into the whole voting thing. But I just wanted to say for myself, I was getting a checkup at the doctor, just a regular old checkup, and she was like, how old are you?" And I was like, 40 something, and she was like, have you had a breast exam?" I was like, and she
mhm.
was like, "No, we're not doing that today," and she scheduled the whole thing and had to go through a rigmarole. But I'm good to go. And but like I said, when you know that you're good, it's a very good thing. Please
Right.
save the tatas.
Please do.
Do it for somebody. Do it for the kids. Do it for somebody. Just save those tatas, okay?
100%.
Let's jump into the comments real quick. Just real quick.
Just real quick so we don't fall too far behind. Earl said, "Hey, from the ATL. We voted on the first day. I like that."
Yay!
Then he went on to say that his wife checked her tatas and hope
Yay!
so. Then Cash chimed in, "Good evening, family. Good evening,
Yay,
fam.
yay,
Right back at you."
hey. So it's interesting because for this topic about your vote counts, don't waste it. I,
Mm-hmm.
I didn't want to fixate it on the actual candidates running. I know we'll be touching on those two here and there, but I definitely wanted to have a conversation about voting because there are people who are like, "Hey, I'm apolitical. I'm not touching it with a 10-yard stick. You couldn't drag me to the polls."
Mm-hmm.
And I feel that it's very imperative that we discuss a little bit of history as to why
Mm.
voting matters. And just kind of just digging back. And I think this is a little bit of a history lesson, kind of just kind of breaking it on down on why your vote matters. Because if it didn't matter, they wouldn't fight so hard to get rid of it.
It's such a no duh kind of thing.
Yeah. So first off, I just want to let everybody know who's tuning in now and later. Go ahead, for those of you who are thinking about voting and going to vote, please go ahead and find those locations and make sure that you know exactly where your voting location is.
Mhm.
It's better also to go earlier, because a lot of times when you wait to the last minute, then you get stuck into some type of jam. Maybe your job wouldn't let you get off, you know,
100.
at a certain time. You can't pick up the kids. The kids are standing in line with you, whatever that is. And then there's a deterrent in reference to you even going to the polls. So the earlier you're able to, you know, get that taken care of, the better. All right, let's talk about that topic, right?
Yeah, let's get into it.
Well, first off, Liz, I know how much you love talking about voting, and you're somebody that marches with the bandwagon, vote, vote, vote. Um, my question for you,
Mhm.
because, and I told you when I saw you yesterday, I said I had a lot of questions, and the questions were coming from people. Of course, they didn't want to per se be on the show, but just making comments, and I'm taking notes of them. And I said, you know what, these are some valid questions, and I'll go ahead and talk about them on the show. So, you know, I'm going to throw them at you like a trigger
Oh
and
boy, here we
start
go.
firing. Yeah. So why do you think
Yeah.
no other political party stands a chance between the options that were given? So, of course, right now we have the Republican, and then we have the Democrat party, and you have both parties swearing their firstborn children as to why they're the best. And you're
Mhm.
literally stuck with just two people to choose from. And at this time, with 9 days away, you're kind of biting your nails, right? Because it's like, okay, he sounds crazy. Man, she flip flops, but I don't know. I mean, and you're literally picking and dissecting all these things, but you
Trying to figure
only
this
have
out.
two choices. Why do you think we keep getting forced into this as a society and society audience out there? Why do you guys still allow that? Because it's not just one person who say, yeah, we
I
should be
did
voting.
not put that on the audience, so the audience is
I
allowing
gotta
it.
put it on, I gotta put it on the audience
I
because
don't think I'm gonna let you do that tonight, Kia.
they represent society. But go ahead, Liz.
Well, here's the thing, right? We kind of have these two parties that have monopolized and dominated the entire political system in this country. It's not like that in other countries. Like India has something like 40, 50 something different parties and so on. We just haven't decided that we're frustrated enough with what's going on yet. I mean, clearly there's, to some extent, we must like it. I do think people have
Mm.
tried to run as independents, as a Green Party or a Tea Party or whatever it is. If you ask me, and again, we're not even taking our personal feelings about this into account, but what Trumpism is not Republican. So they kind of had to hijack the party, infiltrate the party, and take it over. But I mean, the candidates on the ballot this time around are not really Democrat and Republican when you think about it, because Donald Trump is not a Republican. He does things to appease people, but if you actually look at the core values of what the Republican Party has historically stood for, and what the modern Republican Party is about, he's the opposite of all of that. He just happens to be running with an R next to his name because that was the only way for him to gain traction.
You
So
would
he
say
kind
he's
of
more,
figured
you
it
think
out.
that, but you think so he's more like the Tea Party?
No,
Okay.
no, it's Trumpism. He's
Okay.
it's a cult type following, right? And again, I'm not even necessarily, this is not a dig. If you like him, you like him. If you don't, you don't. I'm trying to keep it kind of broad. But at the end of the day, when you really look at Donald Trump and you figure out, well, who's he fighting for? It's himself. Who does he talk about? Himself. It's not about the country. It's not about the party. He doesn't understand the military and military service. He doesn't understand history. He claims to be so rich, and of course, rich people don't like taxes. That makes sense to me, right? But that is also a level of selfishness, right? Because the rest of us kind of know and understand that we participate in society and that our taxes, in theory, should pay for what we need in society. Whereas with people kind of feel like let the peasants pay it and we'll just reap the benefits. So in that regard, I mean, there are specific things that he appeals to the Tea Party, which is anti-tax, and that he appeals to the Republicans, which are also fairly anti-tax. But other than that, he really doesn't. He's not a hawk like the previous Republicans, Cheney and them that are out there rallying with President Harris. I think that not to detract any votes from her, but it's odd to have a Democrat out there, doing rallies with a Cheney of all people. They're war hawks. They're the opposite of anything that would be Democratic, right?
But I have to pause you real quick, and and the only reason I'm putting it on the audience because they're a small, of course, demographic that represent the society.
Mm-hmm.
Why? And I would, and once again, I'm including us. We
Mm-hmm.
know that there's a two-party structure,
Mm-hmm.
and every 4 years, or actually not even 4 years, because you're forgetting there's in between elections that go on all the time as well. We allow the same thing to happen. Like, so we gripe, right? We're like, oh my God, you see what our options are? Oh my God, we see what our options are. And then now we're at the bottom, and now we have to hurry up and scramble to, why do we continue? And it's like, it doesn't logically make sense, because if you want change, if I keep stepping in something, you think, well, like, wait a second, why do you keep stepping in shit? Why don't you just turn around and walk the opposite way? Why do we as a whole? Because even though I heard what you said about, he doesn't represent the Tea Party, he doesn't represent conservative Republicans, he is like a Trumpism, a cult, he serves himself. I still look at it like, okay, well, when it comes to the Democrats, how I see the Democrats, that when you have a little bit more liberal type of Democrat coming into play, or independent coming into a Bernie Sanders, they will cop block real quick. Like, wait a second. They'll tell the audience.
It wasn't real quick. I mean, that was a very slow burn. That was not, no pun intended, but it was a very, very slow burn. It was not real quick. He was allowed to run and go through the whole primary, everything. And then when it really looked like he got some traction, that's kind of where it came in.
But why? But once again, why? Why do we have the Democratic Party do that? I remember, what's the rapper? Not Mike Jones. Oh God, the Atlanta rapper. I forget his name real quick. If you everybody knows, he's oh God, starts with an M. Killer Mike. Anyway, okay. I remember he was on a radio station and he wanted to have specific questions, and the radio station stopped. They said, "Wait. We're not even going to ask Bernie Sanders these questions to begin with." But it's like, okay, here's an opportunity of somebody else. I mean, Bernie Sanders literally had to say, I'm not an independent and I'm a Democrat, just so he could be a part of that clique. Both sides have like this clique, and you cannot deviate in any way.
Well, no, actually, Bernie Sanders tried to do what Trump was successful at, right? So he was his own thing, right? He's an independent, always has been. And in order to gain traction, he had to play the game and put a D next to his name. And unfortunately, it was kind of too little too late for it to really work, right? And so, okay, this time around, there's probably hundreds of people that were running for president, right? The thing is, the reason that the two parties dominate is because and I know you're asking us, why do we allow this? Can you name any of the other hundreds of people that were running that were not Democrats or Republicans? No, because it takes a lot of money to get a commercial to run once, let alone over and over, right? It takes a lot of money to get people to know who you are. There's only so many doors that you can personally knock on. Even if I decided tomorrow I'm running for president of the United States and I'm going to knock on every door that I can for the next 4 years, can I really make a dent that way? It just doesn't.
But have you noticed that when you have a candidate, let's just say you represented the Republicans, actually, let's just say we're both Democrats, and I'm a little bit more liberal than you are, right? Have you noticed that when it comes to, hey, who we're going to back and put our money behind, the one that's a little bit more conservative, that can appeal to the independent side / Republican side, they're going to push towards you. They're not going to push to the more liberal, hey, free this, free that. Like, have you noticed, like, it's kind of like, okay, when they sit together in a room, like, okay, and I would say even Republicans too, like, this is the candidate we're going to pump, and there's no other, because I have seen that other billionaires run, for a candidacy. You don't know too much about them, but
right.
They have money too to self kind of promote.
To some extent. I mean, we've had that already, right? With Ross Perot, for example, and a few other people, but it's about them. It's always about the money, right? And it's sad. I'm not trying to take the heart out of the fight or anything else like that, but it is about the money. So when you have, if you're a Democrat or a Republican, and you just say, like, the Democrats, if we get somebody that's super liberal and they're trying to run, and then you have somebody that's more central, a centrist, if you would, who do you think is going to gain more votes at the end of the day? Because if you're all the way to the left, you might lose people in the center, and you're definitely not gaining anybody on the right. However, if you're in the center, and especially when you're running against somebody like this asshole, you know what I mean? Then there are right now I'm there. I wasn't there before. I'm there now. But now there are votes up for grabs. You have your Nikki Haley voters that'll come into the fold possibly, right? You have those liberals that will, fall in line eventually because at the end of the day, you have to get something done. And so if you were the person with the purse strings and you were hedging your bets, would you go with the more extreme liberal that's going to lose some Democrats and all Republicans, or would you go with the more centrist person? Where are you going to put your money?
It's
Because
interesting.
one of those is going to yield results and one of them isn't.
It's interesting because while you were talking, what I received from that is it has to do with the money. It has to do, no. And it sounds terrible, right? But it has to do with the money because even though that one that is a little bit more liberal can be all for, the free child care and the this and this or whatever, and that's for the people. They're still like, well, let me look at that money. Let me go to the comments real quick and then we'll go back.
So Earl said the Republicans need Democrats to save them. I think we're at a point of mutually assured destruction because at this point, the Democrats are running around with the Republicans because we kind of need them too if we want to win in a way. You know what I mean? So she's not going to win without some Republicans joining the fold. It's just not going to happen, right? So at this point, it's kind of mutual. But yeah, the Republicans need the Democrats to save the country. Bluntly, not just the Republicans, the actual democracy itself, right? So Z said, Liz, you're 100% correct about the Cheneys. However, don't you think that says something about it that Trump and actual warmongers are like, nah, he's too crazy. We can't let him get into office, right? When the crazy people are telling you that he's too crazy,
but you know what bothers me, and that's why I think it's a political setup. Of course, I am going to vote. We're going to talk about the history of voting, and like I said, we're going to dive into that. But I do think it's very, very frustrating that. So we had Biden, who was in office for 4 years, right? And Trump has been facing all types of different criminal things happening with him. Why would you wait to the last year, knowing how much he'll push a trial back and this and all types of things? Even General Kelly coming out saying he's a fascist, you can't trust him. Lord, World War III is about to happen tomorrow. Why would you wait 5 days, 9 days, 2 days, right, to drop the bomb? No one cares at this point. Now, right, for us, we're like, oh, yeah, we know he said something like that. But to make an impact, can you imagine I guess what I'm trying to say is if he was convicted, right? If he was convicted earlier of these crimes, if he had all these things that he had to go from, if we're finding out all the details and the candid cameras and the tapes, would he have such a close poll? Because the polls are very close in reference to Kamala and Trump. But would we even be going through this right now? If we already started, like, why did the Democrats wait so long? Why did the people, the whistleblowers wait so long to be like, oh, please don't vote him in? Like, why? Why wait to D-Day?
I mean, I don't think anything would make a difference. I really, really don't, right? And I mean, it sounds like an exaggeration, but I feel like it's not spoken about enough. I think that what we need to be reminded of is Jim Jones, right? He literally had those people drink the Kool-Aid. That wasn't like secretly poisoned. They knew that it was cyanide in the Kool-Aid, right? And they drank it anyway. That's where we are with Donald Trump. There is absolutely nothing that you're going to say that is going to get people. You can't say it. You can't do it. You can't put it on a poster. There's nothing that he is going to say that is not going to get it. He says the craziest shit. And every time he talks, it gets crazier. And you know what? Those people, they literally are like, well, we don't take him literally.
You know what? I'm glad you mentioned that. I'm glad you mentioned that because Michelle Obama had a great speech yesterday and she was saying something like that. Why do we hold Vice President Kamala Harris to a different standard? So they're like, oh, she flip-flops. She's this, she's that, she's this. We need more from her. What's going on? She can't articulate. As soon as you talk about the economy, she talks about, yes, and my mother, had a middle class. And we're expecting so much from her, but when it comes to him, it's like, oh, Donald, that's Trump. He's so funny. Oh my God. Right. And it's like, why are we holding this? Is it because one's a man and then one is a woman? Why are we looking at both candidates and saying one is it's okay and the other one it's not?
For once, I'm going to actually go out on a limb here and I'm going to say it actually does not have to do with sex. It does not have to do with race, because until 3 months ago, he was up against Biden, and Biden couldn't possibly, pause for thought for a moment before it was, oh, look at him, he's deteriorating. And this guy is straight up rambling about
and dancing for 30
everything.
minutes.
Yeah, he's standing there just kind of, I wish it looked like that, at least be entertaining.
Oh.
Like, no, for this one time, I can honestly say it's not because she's Black, it's not because she's a woman, it's because Donald Trump is Donald Trump. And I think in the comments it just came through, it would not make a difference. Trump's the Teflon Don, right?
Let's go back to those comments too. Sorry about that, guys.
And so Cash said, America is not very democratic. It's an illusion of choice.
I believe that. I really do believe.
Oh gosh, you're gonna have to come back to that.
Okay.
100%. It is all about the money, and it is. It's all.
It's very sad though, because as much as we know it's all about the money, then when is it about the people? When is it truly about the people? And I wish the people, and I included myself, we would do something to change. I mean, when I tell you we have the power to shut shit down, we do. But unfortunately, with the rigmarole of everything, it's not as easy as said than done.
And so, let's see. Cash said, as Liz just stated, you can have center right or far right. Those are your choices. The Democrats took out the squad. With friends like that, who needs enemies? Now, wouldn't you say the same thing about the right? Because you got all these people that were in Trump's office. Like, they were in office with him. They were in his campaign. They were in his cabinet. They were in everything. And they're coming out and they're like, don't do this. I mean, so the Republicans have the same problem that the Democrats have. We only see what we want to see because we think that that's what affects us. But they're having a civil war over there all day long, too. Again, you got the Cheneys. Out
And
there.
What's very tainted, and going back to Trumpism, sorry to cut you off, going back to the whole Trumpism thing and the cultist attitude, because I look at it like this, you have a person, Trump, he is very, all about self. But then the followers, he can do no wrong in a lot of people's eyes. I happen myself to be a prepper, and me prepping about different things, I follow different groups, not because I'm just trying to learn how to tie a Girl Scout, a Boy Scout knot or something like that, but just to see what people are doing and what they're into. And some of these conservative prepping groups are prepping. They're posting guns and ammo and stockpiles, and they're like, hey, somebody's going out. Let her win. Let this. And it's like, wow, have we really got here? Have we really came here? I mean, I know if you take back to January 6th, you can remember, I'm literally watching on live TV, people die on TV, but they're prepping right now for those things. So yes, it is true. Like you said, Liz, they are taking their own out, and they are talking about taking their own out literally in real time.
That's really what the idea. I mean, wasn't it hang Mike Pence?
Yeah.
It wasn't. I mean, yes, they were after Nancy Pelosi that day, but don't get it twisted. Their first choice for that day that they would have gotten a noose was Mike Pence, right? I mean, it's that level of insanity that we're actually dealing with. And so Alistair said that he can say anything or do anything, and they will stand behind him. If Jesus Christ himself was running, would Trump run with Trump? They would side with him. Yeah, if he was running against Jesus, they would go with Trump, because in a way, like, and not to get religious for a moment, but in a way, he is running against Jesus. Every single thing that man stands for is extremely anti-Christian. Everything, right? The five kids with the 3 wives, the nude model wife, the punch them in the face. Everything that he says is so anti-Christian. And you got the evangelicals in their pulpits every Sunday telling their congregations to do the right thing. You are literally running a man against the beliefs and the teachings of Jesus Christ, and he's winning.
So 2 things that were actually happening in real time, an hour ago. I don't know if the game is still on with the Cowboys and stuff, but okay. the football game was running, and then we actually had Donald Trump at Madison Square Garden. And his speech that he was giving, of course, the same type of rhetoric, but it was full speed ahead. He was talking about giving the death penalty for crimes against Americans. I mean, he was going in about the different punishments that need to be out there just because of illegal immigration, just the different things in reference to crazy. They call her the shit vice president. Just all types of vulgarities, and it's unfortunate because I understand we take digs, right? Opponents take digs at each other, like, man, that Liz, she's so lazy, she can't wake up on time. That's considered a dig. But
Okay.
now we're using vulgarities, and my little one literally said, oh, "Mommy, did he use a bad word?" And it's like you have to stop and be like, "Oh," and try to explain or whatever. So, yeah, it's really getting to be a true
It's
shit show.
disgusting. Yeah, it really is. And so Kiva Pittman, who I think is the first time in the comment section, so welcome to the comments,
Hey, Keith.
said double standards, right? And then Keisha said definitely double standards happening. So good evening, Keisha. So Z said at Kia, I think it's a combination of party loyalty and trying to stave off scrutiny.
You know what? It's interesting because the whole the party loyalty thing, it reminds me, like I said, of that Jim Jones. It's very scary. Like I said, you guys can literally go on any conservative Twitter, even TikTok. If you follow those certain things, put "We love Donald Trump" inside the search bar, and you'll see people like they're crazy. And I don't mean, like I said, if you're going to go out and vote for him, there's no knock to you on that. Please utilize your right to vote. That's a conference. Everybody has that right to vote, but I guess what I'm trying to say is for you to put him on the same level as God. He's anointed. He's the chosen one.
Mhm.
I need to offer my child to him. And he doesn't like his voters. He'll tell you, I do not like you. I just want your vote. And I'm like, wait a second. It's like he's living shit in your face.
Educated. There's a lot to unpack there. Like the self
Yeah.
hate coming from these people is. But just last week we talked about, the most anti-immigrant people are married to immigrants. Their children are first generation Americans, and but they're gonna deport people and get rid of birthright citizenship. It's all kind of strange, right? Alistair's asking, how are these MAGA folks out here supporting Russia and Putin's puppet?
It's interesting that you asked that is because I know the undercover conservatives and they're like, Putin is so strong. And, Putin is, I mean, did you see how he takes his shirt off and fights a bear? And I'm like, wait a second, what the hell is that? I mean, but it's scary because for me, I'm like, okay, I understand if you really did your research because the average person, to be honest with you, does not sit and do their research in reference to each candidate, unfortunately. But if you are reading and reading up and this and that, and I'm not talking about what TikTok said, but really doing the facts and seeing the actual information in first party hand, that's a great thing. Why? Why would you put a man in office? I mean, you know what? Okay, I have to tell the audience I am a tree hugger. I'm not a crazy tree hugger, but I love the earth, right? I love the planet. We only got one of them, you know what I'm saying? And
Put
for
your
him
feet in
to
the soil,
say,
yes.
yes, and for him to say we are going to get rid of the EPA. Now, for those of you who do not know, it's a regulatory group that works out with the government. If you're living here and across the street they dig a big, toxic, dump, guess what? They're coming out and they say, wait a second, you can't be within this thing. There's regulations. For you to just come and remove those, it's like, wow, I do not understand. But like I said, I think you made a good thing about the fact it's a cult. It's a cult group.
It is.
It's unfortunate because I do see Republicans, because of course it's about Republicans at this moment, and not wasting your vote. They're literally saying we have to vote Democratic. We have to save democracy. They're scared themselves. So that's really, really, something there.
It's interesting you mentioned the EPA and why that would be important. I'm old enough to remember when you couldn't see the sky in California. Do you remember that? Where, people were walking around with masks long before COVID in California. And there were certain hours of the day that it was like dangerous to go outside because of all the toxic fumes and elements in the air. And that's where we got a lot of the regulations on car emissions, on different major corporations and how they had to properly dispose of their garbage and everything else. A lot of that stuff came from California, and people consistently talk shit about how many regulations California has and so on and so forth. The expected life rate was about to be 20, in California if they didn't do something. And it's funny because one of the leading people that helped out with getting some of that pushed through was Arnold Schwarzenegger, a Republican, right?
Yeah, yeah.
Alistair's question was about how are they supporting Putin in Russia. It was a Republican, Ronald Reagan, that stood there and asked for Gorbachev to tear down that wall. Right, it was a Republican that broke up the USSR, and it's oddly a so-called Republican that's about to help Putin put the USSR back together. Like, I don't know why or how people aren't asking these questions, but it is strange that what is Republican about anything that this man is talking about? It doesn't make any sense. So I know that we have just comments rolling in here. And so Cash said the double standard is the voters. His voters' only standard is if you will put white people first. The standard by Democrat voters is different as we have a lot of different interests. That's the problem. It's a good problem to have, but it is the problem with the Democrats. It's a big tent and everybody is out for their own interests. It's really hard to get us to coalesce. Whereas they've kind of got it together on the other side. I've been shouting that from the mountaintops for a while now. So, all right. Z said at Kia, I don't think it will ever truly be about the people because of the American dream. Interesting. And then it goes on to say most Americans think like momentarily embarrassed millionaires instead of the aggrieved masses. Ooh. Yikes. So he said, I think that makes sense. It does make sense.
Mm-hmm.
Actually. Yes, that's
trying to get through these comments before we jump to the next subject.
There's a lot, right? So Akiva said Trump is loyal unto himself. Right. Trump is for the Trump party and the Trump family, barely, right? And that's it. Nobody else. He really does not care about these people that will lay their lives and give up their freedom for him. He has followers sitting in jail because they openly broke the law and threatened people and violated every version of the law that they could. And they are sitting in jail. And when they get out, they are back behind him. It's the strangest thing I've ever seen. So Charles said, hey, Charles. So Charles said, Trump has always been that way. It's not surprising at all. Stop acting like every statement he makes is some new low. He has shown everyone exactly who he was before.
You know what? I can say this. I, being from New York, and being a kid, seeing him as this kind of like I wouldn't say playboy because normally playboys might be handsome looking, but being this, guy who's at parties. I mean, he's always in and out. He ran Atlantic City, and he was hanging out with rappers, Diddy, and this and this. I always knew him to be a con artist. I mean, I grew up knowing that he was about his money. He was a white collar criminal. He was always a criminal person, had criminal mentality, but a white collar. So it's a little harder to grab him up, compared to somebody on the corner. But I always knew who he was. I think for myself, what surprises me is not Donald Trump. Donald Trump is going to be Donald Trump. You could take Donald Trump and put him on Pluto and he's going to still be saying the same shit. I think for me, what surprises is the amount of people who swear by him. Right. And what the scary part for me is let's just say, because there's a level of craziness in the world, but I guess when you see it right up in your face,
and that many people being willing to participate in your crazy,
that's what it is. Because, like I said, the people are crazy, but all of a sudden you see the HOA president with the big banner and the F-150 truck, and they running you off the road, jump forever. That right there would be surprising. Like, you too. Damn, right. Even the lunch lady, like, you crazy. Like, that's what is the surprising. And
funny, that might just be your brain. Alistair just said the same thing. He said, I think the disbelief is in the percentage of Americans standing with him. Weird. His wife doesn't stand with him. What are you doing standing behind him so hard?
Like, that's another thing. His wife doesn't even agree with him. Yeah.
Nobody else can survive that.
But it goes back to what Cash is saying, because you're putting white first. Then there and my grandma said, some people will die. I will set my whole house on fire. I will burn to give my country white supremacy back to whoever, or try to change this all up. And we're definitely going to bring it back to that statement there.
And so let's see. Nikisha said, I have to say, I'm a bit nervous about the consequences of this election. For the first time, Republicans are outpacing Democrats in early voting. Not sure how to feel about that.
You know what's interesting? I think I'm sorry to cut you off. I think they jumped on that bandwagon because they seen that's what we always were promoting, because we always get stuck because of voter restriction and different things like that. I'll jump into the
We skipped the comments. You got Earl that said he remembers he remembers Pittsburgh in the 70s. It was straight
where
and
was that?
nasty.
Oh, I'm sorry.
Yes, and he remembers Cali. So yeah, it was a severe health hazard. China was having the same issue, and they had to tighten up too. We need environmental protection. Even if you're not a tree hugger, you might just be a people hugger. If you want to breathe clean air, you need an organization that's going to ensure that we have that clean air to breathe, or that when you go to the beaches, you remember Coney Island in the 90s? You walk down the beach and you could get stuck with a needle. It was needles and drug paraphernalia and condoms and all kinds of things. It's the Environmental Protection Agency that ensure different types of laws and protections to help that stuff out. So I just don't know what people are thinking sometimes. So Kiva said, yes, he mesmerizes his followers, but it's like, how? Why? It's questions, right? We're all baffled. So Earl said the Caucasus Mountain people, yeah, they're different. They not like us. Charles said, why are you surprised about that? The white supremacy movement has always showed their crazy side. It's always been there. Stop living in a fantasy land that America is a melting pot of immigrants.
So I'll say this, and I love to, if you guys just want to know, Charles is my brother. Sometimes he's on the show, and it's always good having that conversation with him. But with that being said, I wanted to quote Frederick Douglass. And the reason why I wanted to quote Frederick Douglass is because I wanted to bring it kind of back to why there's so many people who just don't want to vote. Like, they're over it, right? I'm over the people who follow them. I'm over I'm over everybody. And our ancestors fought very, very hard for our right to vote. And they thought it was very, very important. To answer your question about why are you surprised, I think my statement was rhetorical. Kind of like, I know it's going to be raining. It always rains in Florida, right? We live in Florida. There's a certain hurricane season, but you wanted to go out that day, and it's raining on the day that you wanted to go out. So you're like, what the fuck is this rain coming from? Oh, I can't believe it's raining, cats and dogs. So no, it's not a thing of like, oh my God, I'm flawed that the staff kitchen lady at the school, supports Trump and his idiocracy. I'm just like, fuck, like, wow. I thought it was 100,000 people that were crazy. Now I find out it was 100,001. Like I said, it's a rhetorical type of thing, I wanted to bring it back to why we squander our vote and why, it's kind of lost. There are some people who do not believe at all and will not be voting, period. I don't care what side is offering who. You can't buy my vote, because did you hear about Elon Musk as well offering the $1 million
$1 yes.
And some people are winning this sweepstake if you sign up and pledge to vote and these different things. During slavery, once slavery was abolished, Frederick Douglass basically said, if slavery is not abolished until the black man has a ballot. And the stuff that our ancestors had to go through to get a ballot was unthinkable. And it kind of makes you think real quick as to why would that go in vain? Why would you, just in a general sense, for those people who are thinking about sitting it out, why would you want to sit it out? If any of those people are guests, I know I talked to some young people who are old enough to vote, and they said they will not be voting. They're just that blown with everything. It's all confusion. If you can kind of reach out and tell me why you don't want to vote. I'm really, really curious to hear why, because we can go on and on with statistics, with so many people who fought for our right to vote, and for you to squander it. Question I don't want to throw out is, do you believe the reason why, besides being frustrated with the political temperature that's out there, do you think it's just how hard it is to vote in some areas, about voter restriction?
No, I think it's very, very, very largely a sense of hopelessness. To some extent, it's ignorance. and I'm not saying it as a diss to the people that are not voting. I just really, truly, with my whole heart, believe that it's a lack of knowledge, which is the definition of ignorance, that would lead you to believe that you want to leave your vote on the table. You know what I mean? But it's that same lack of knowledge that if you don't exercise a right, you surrender it, if you would. And why would you? Why would you give anything up? No one's giving you anything. What are you giving up that's something so valuable for free? Right? It really doesn't take much to vote. I mean, it can't get any easier. They'll mail the ballot to your house, right? You can mail it back in. You can drop it off. There's days, if not weeks, depending on where you are, to drop it off. It is not hard to vote, right? On election day, your voting precinct is in your neighborhood. They do not send you across town. They do not, I mean, in most places. We have some places that are trying to rig the system and so on, right? But for the most part, you very much can vote, right? Think about the fact that those other people, the reason that they rioted and they took over, they had this whole tantrum on January 6th, because that's what it was, an overblown tantrum, is because they truly feel that their vote is more valuable and worth more than yours. The country decided that Joe Biden was the next president. That is like, period. And to them, it's just like, we don't care what the other half of the country wants. This is what we want. It's the only outcome that we'll accept. That's how strongly they feel about their vote and their power. And on the other hand, you have other people that are just like, that doesn't even make sense. You don't even have to go all the way back to the civil rights movie or slavery. You have people today that are telling you that their vote counts more than yours, or is more valuable than yours, or that you should not vote. You should not have the right to vote, because if you vote wrong, they are willing to kill you. And you're just kind of, okay.
I looked up online, USA.gov, and these are the only 4 reasons why one should not be able to vote. Non-citizen, including permanent legal residents, cannot vote in federal, state, and most local elections. Then you have some people cannot vote after being convicted of a felony, or if they currently are serving time for other types of crimes. Rules are different in each state. Of course, you'd have to go to vote.gov to check that out to see what your actual state is saying in those laws. Some people have a mental disability that may not be able to, of course, you can't vote. They're not able to comprehend. So they're going to need assistance in doing that process, which is a whole process within itself. So if you're not doing that early to set that up, you can't just come there and like, hey, I got Johnny to come vote for me.
Right.
So definitely look into those rules before you go there. And then U.S. citizens residing in U.S. territories cannot vote for presidents in the general election, which I did not know that.
There you go. Yeah.
Yeah, but with that being said, it seems that there's just a very simple amount of rules as to why one can't vote, but then we find so many lists, subcategories. We hear so many people complaining that they were not able to vote. Now, that is what is surprising me. That is something, Charles, if you're still on, why I would be like, well, wait a second, because it says here in USA.gov that there's only 4 main reasons why a person couldn't vote.
Right.
But you hear time after time about redlining and all types of that. Do you know a little bit about redlining? Can you explain that to the audience?
Redlining, gerrymandering, they play these games with your voting jurisdiction, for lack of a different way to say that, right? And that is actually the biggest way that they diminish your vote, like what your vote is worth. Right. So, for example, if they know that on this, in my particular neighborhood, the left side of the street votes red, the right side of the street votes blue, and we're oversimplifying it, what they'll do is redraw the lines so that suddenly my little blue block is a part of a really big red voting block. And therefore, even though my entire street voted unanimously blue, we're now a part of a 90% red voting district. And directly across the street from me, there might only be 2 people that vote Republican, but those 2 make a big difference when you put them in the right group of people. And so somehow that's how you end up with, and the Electoral College kind of works in that way too. We have had so many elections as of late, pretty much just about all of them in our lifetime, where, not all of them, but the majority of them in our lifetime, where the popular vote took second place to the Electoral College. And it comes right back down to that. So it doesn't matter that I have 10 people on my side of the street versus the 2 people on your side of the street. It matters where the districts were drawn.
I hear that they're wanting to get rid of the popular vote
The
and keep the electoral.
and same is true in the reverse. So they wanted to get rid of the electoral college and go to just the popular vote, and then there's other people who want to get rid of the popular vote and go to the electoral college. Now, the reason the electoral college exists, in theory, it was a genius idea, right? It really made sense, because what you don't want is to disenfranchise the people that live in states with a smaller population.
Mm-hmm.
So if you live in Ohio, population 2, and you live in New York City, population 2 million, then Ohio is never going to matter, and no one's ever going to look out for the best interest and the rights of Ohioans, and we need them too, right? Those are the farmers, those are the people that, if the cows are dying, we're eating the cows, and that's not good, right? And so it does affect everybody. To think that just because you're in a more densely populated area, the next person shouldn't matter. There's something kind of wrong with that. So that's the argument to why we need an electoral college. The argument against it is, when you give the 2 people over here the same amount of clout as the 2 million over here, how is that fair to the 2 million? That's almost like saying that you're worth a lot less than those 2 people. Okay. So that's kind of the argument for both sides there.
I guess Charles had came in. Thanks for explaining that part too about the redlining. Go ahead.
So Charles is saying redlining can be defined as a discriminatory practice that consists of the systematic denial of service, such as insurance, loans, and other financial services to residents.
So what is the actual terminology then? Correct me, because of course then I used I misspoke in reference to the terminology of when, because I have seen it many times.
That's why I went that way.
Gerrymandering. Okay, thank you for that, because I was like, okay, what is that? Because you'll look at a map and it'll be like a little blue and a big red, but like where? Okay,
right? Yeah. So redlining is more
like you mentioned, the discriminatory
financial institutions for the most part, right? It's not always financial, but it usually is going to affect. It's going to fiscally disenfranchise people that aren't properly represented, and just kind of take advantage of them.
And the gerrymandering is what you were talking about.
The election process and so on. Yes.
Thank you for that. So tell me real quick in reference, what would you say to the young youth that are not really following politics? Mm-hmm. They're more into the popular vote, right? You got the Taylor Swifties who are coming in like, yay. You got the Beyonce that just came out and endorsed. Then you had I guess people who still follow Hulk Hogan. He kind of came out and endorsed. And Kid Rock, he endorsed Trump. What would you tell the youth, or how would you get them? Because we only got 9 days left to say, hey, go ahead and of course you have to be registered already in these different things. But what would you tell them that's like, hey, don't waste that vote? How would you tell the youth, since the youth kind of like that catchy ads, they like quick thinking type of things? What would you say to them to get them to go out?
Well, a story that was really small in this past couple of weeks that should have been kind of a more explored, I guess, maybe not a bigger deal, but more explored. And I could be saying his name wrong. I think his name is C.J. Dupree from Alabama, right? I pulled it up, and his actual quote, because what it was, Trump went to an Alabama game, a University of Alabama game, and they were asking him, hey, did you think it was a distraction? He said, no, I actually found it kind of awesome. And then he went on to say, I don't get into politics. I don't vote. I don't get into it just because I don't think I'm old enough to need to get into it right now. But I thought it was awesome to have that kind of icon at the game. Mm-hmm. Whether or not he thinks he's an icon or that it was awesome or anything like that, that's an aside, right? You're talking about a man that is 21 years old. A man that is 21 years old is not a child, right? Mm-hmm. He's playing sports. There are so many laws that govern the sports that he's playing, right? Mm-hmm. Not for nothing, the Republican Party as of late has been hell-bent on closing down the universities and the colleges and everything else. That is high up on their to-do list. And I don't think we're paying enough attention to that. If you're a college student, particularly of any age, if you can vote, if you're over 18, vote, right? Mm-hmm. If you don't want to see your school closed down, if you do want to make sure that you have, insurance and healthcare and everything else for just in case you get injured, I want to bring to your attention that a lot of 17-year-olds are signing up for the military. right? 17, 18 years old, you can suit up and pick up arms and go defend this country. You best believe that you should have a say in what you're willing to die for, right? And so, and if a 17 or 18-year-old can actually, join the military forces and say that, you know what, I love this country enough to defend it, then you should participate in it, right? And to be a 21-year-old, and he happens to be white, but any 21-year-old that is now in their third or fourth year of college, life has already afforded you a certain amount of privilege that you should really know better than to just say that you think you're too young for this to affect you right now. It's affecting you. We just had a show 2 weeks ago, Kia, where I told you my 12-year-old is affected. Every week she's got, to get, behind the door and close of this and that and the third. I'm not telling you that my 12-year-old should vote, but I'm telling you that she certainly is affected by the inaction of our political parties. So to me, to be a young person and to have the right to have the founding fathers were in there, and it was to establish and maintain democracy. They were like 28 to 30 something years old. A couple of them were a little bit older, but they were young, right? The Kennedys started running and they were in their 20s and so on. I don't understand the laziness behind you behind you just taking absolutely no responsibility or being willing to participate, just filling a little dot for the sake of your own life. And
I'll take it a step further, because I've talked to people who haven't voted before, and they're, definitely my seniors, and people who are thinking about voting. And I'll say, even if you don't want to vote necessarily for the presidency,
right,
still go out and vote, because there's other things that are on that ballot. In reference to abortion, in reference to legalizing marijuana, schools. Do you want a big road to come in between you and the school? And I know you're thinking like, oh, really? Yeah, those type of things are on. A lot of times people, I'm sorry to cut you off. A lot of times people think sometimes that, the presidential election is just that, the presidential and vice president election. That's it. It's so much more. I mean, you do not want, a lot of times people complain about the criminal justice system, right? Oh my God, it's so unfair. Well, how do you think judges get into office? We have to vote the judges in.
Right.
We have to, we vote judges in. You have to do your research, find out who's doing what. Oh, wait a second. Judge so-and-so loves to give people 8 plus 10 years if you have a little marijuana in your pocket, compared to Bobby Judge, raped, and he only gets two years. So you want to make the criminal justice system a little bit more manageable, a little bit more fair. Guess what? We have to vote these judges in. So it's really interesting how people just squander their vote away. Like I said, even if you wanted to write your own damn name into the ballot for presidency.
I mean, there are, and it's funny because those taxes that people complain about, they're on the ballots too, right? Most of the time in your area, they're voting on, the 1 mil tax, right? And how they're going to get extra money for the schools. They will vote on water, right? And so how do you, or power lines? Do you want the power lines buried or not? It doesn't necessarily, you don't have to fall in line with one of these two candidates. There's so many other things that are on the ballot that are more important than those two people. You are on the ballot, right? And despite however you might feel about it, because there's arguments for and against abortion, but honestly, you can't tell me that you don't have an opinion on that one way or the other. Like you just can't. You cannot tell me you don't have an opinion on that. And so Cash said, I think there's a lot of feeling of powerlessness in America. A lot of people feel the rich and powerful are going to do what they want anyway. Yes and no.
It's interesting, and I think I had the conversation with you one time, Cash, and it was in reference to voting. So in slavery times, when slavery was something that was common, you had 2 slave masters, right? And they were at the auction, and let's just say for whatever reason, you had a choice, right, to pick which slave master you wanted to go to. They're both wrong. Both slave masters is wrong, but this one, they're going to separate the family. You're not going to get any days off, and they give you 1 meal a day. This one over here, they'll keep you with your family. You get 2 days off. And you may get some extra pennies or something. Like I said, both of them are wrong. No, they should not be having slaves. No, they shouldn't. But would you choose either or? And I've had some people say, well, you know what? I guess they'll pick, and oh well. And I'm like, Like to hear the answer, and it makes me feel. And the reason why I brought that up is because I know Cash mentioned being just powerless, and just feeling defeated. I know a lot of Americans feel very, very defeated at this moment, feel very overwhelmed. I think that when it comes to world politics, I do not think that Trump is a good world leader at all. Yeah, he could be a shrewd businessman, and hey, I make the deal, and he's getting something done with some factories in America.
And how many times has he been bankrupt?
Yes, but I know a lot of if you do the research on business people, a lot of them go in and out of bankrupt, and then they get their money back and stuff,
No,
and they're flipping deals.
Like no money.
I hear you, but I'm just in reference to political world politics. I do not think he's a good world politics. The way he treats the military, all these different things, it's like, wow. And I understand that each candidate has their flaws, but I just empower everybody listening, everybody who knows somebody, tell somebody who knows somebody, um, get out, vote early. I know Earl mentioned that he did already. That's awesome. Because at the end of the day, like I mentioned in the beginning, there's a reason why they don't want you to vote. There's a reason why they're wanting to silence you. We're gonna have a show, guys, the day after the election. And the reason why I said the day after the election, because hopefully after the election, election night, we'll actually know who the president is. I would like to know anybody that's still out there. Who do you think's going to win? Who do you think's going to win? Who do you think's going to win, Liz?
My nerves can't handle this conversation right now. It cannot handle this part of the conversation right now. All right. So clearly for me, hopefully, she gets the seat. Right. And for people that are out there, because the whole show was why should I vote? Right. People that are out there that are on the fence right now, is she the perfect, most ideal candidate ever? She's not. But look at the freaking alternative. Like, right? I can't express that enough, right? When you've got the Republicans that she has going, I mean, damn, we'll take this over the alternative, right? He's not good for the country. Kia just said it really well. She said he's not a world leader. He's not a leader of this country.
No.
He's not a representation of not a true representation, I hope, of what everyday Americans are like or wish to be portrayed as on a global scene. When we were growing up, Kia, I don't know about you, but did you have assignments like homework assignments where you had to watch the presidential debates?
Sometimes
and the vice presidential debates and the different things.
I have to write something about it.
Yeah, and everything else, right? I don't really think it was because they were shoving a red or white agenda. It was just about us understanding, the issues or understanding the structure of things and everything else. It's so nasty. We can't get through a debate or even a segment on politics. You're talking about the United States, the president of the United States, where we don't talk about somebody's penis size or the porn chicks that they slept with, or how stop that. Stop it, Kia. Right? We've devolved into this. Like we're not civilized. My daughter's so interested in these things, and whenever they start talking politics, I have to shoo her out of the room. I don't know what's going to happen next. I don't know who he sexually assaulted. I don't know. It's the craziest thing. I mean, and also bluntly, you don't know who's going to get shot right on TV, live, right in front of you, right?
You know what? I think that what's interesting. Going back to what Charles has said, like I said, I don't know if he's still on right now, but I know he mentioned like, "Hey, why are you being surprised?" I think also because being in the military, there's a standard. There's a standard that's always upheld. And if it's not upheld, there's some type of backlash, right? You can get written up and have to get an Article 15 of some sort. It can even resort into getting locked up and different things. There's always standards. And Trump has no standards. So for me, like I said, maybe it is the youthfulness in myself, like, wait, where's the standards, but I like you said, the choice is here. I know this last comment here. Hey,
that's a good question, but he didn't answer the question. Who's gonna win?
Yes, I gotta know. I gotta know the answer to this. Who do you think is going to win? I feel it's gonna be so close. We're not gonna have a freaking answer.
We're not going to have an answer that
I don't
night.
think we're going to have an answer the way we want to. I think that you're going to have one network call it like, hey, we're calling it, boo, 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 boo. But I think that either party,
I can't
I don't,
believe it.
I think that either party, and especially because it's so close, let's just say it was a 48% Kamala and a 46, or I'll even say 45% Donald Trump. Because of that closeness, Donald Trump's going to be right back on the same thing that he was always back on. Like, no,
I'll meet you.
I'm just looking for 5,253.
Yes, it's like I believe that, right? But to kind of go back to what Cash was saying in terms of that feeling of powerlessness and that the rich and powerful always get what they want anyway. I would disagree. And it was good, Kia, that you went to the whole idea of a slave master and so on. I wouldn't use the exact analogy. However, the rich and powerful back in the day were the plantation owners and the slave masters. And slavery got, it was stripped away from the future of this country, right? So the rich and the powerful do not always get what they want, right? I think that the biggest tragedy in all of this, I think that when we look back at this in history, um, where we've kind of gone off the rails a little bit is that we cannot talk to each other. There's no reason that this election should be this close. There really is no reason for it. What it tells me is that we no longer know how to communicate with each other. We don't respect each other as humans. Because as you said, you got your closet conservative. Go ahead and try to have a real conversation with them about this. They can't hear you. They don't want to hear you.
Yeah.
And there's something we don't know how to pierce that shield that they've got up, but we've got to figure out how to get people to just look at each other like humans again. It cannot just be this one cult-like figure that you're exalting by any means necessary.
But I'll stop you, and not to go into a whole other topic, but I'll say this. I think the reason why that lack is there is for the simple fact that you have a group of people that keep growing and growing. The money's there. Like, there's so many people, like, I want to be that 10%, that 1%. I know, I mean, for instance, like I said, the Elon Musk. Tell me in history, have we ever seen somebody give $1 million?
Because it's illegal, Kia.
Well,
it's illegal.
I'm not saying no, but guess what? It's set up. The court system has been set up already. We knew what we were doing. I tell you guys in advance, white people plan 50 years in advance. They already know what they're doing. This is not something that he just came up with, this billionaire, like, oh yeah, I'm giving $1 million away. To him, it's nothing. He has 10 days left. He's only giving away $10 million in 10 days. Guess what? That's like $10 to him.
Yeah.
For the person getting it, like, woohoo, I won. But at the end of the day, where have we've gotten so crazy? Like you said, people are wanting all the riches that they can get. And if that means I got to tear my neighbor down or whatever that looks like to get it. So I definitely believe what you're saying in reference to just lost.
I'm nervous that nobody answered the question. Did you notice that
I did notice that.
They did not want to put their 2 cents in there. I'm calling you guys out, right? Because you have all kinds of opinions, but you don't have any guesses on who's going to win. That's all right. We'll forgive you tonight. I'm calling the audience out this time. Not one guess, right? But all right. In terms of last words, look, it's a hard subject to tackle without coming across as they were really mad at President Obama the other day because they felt that, he was talking down to Black men when he was questioning why they wouldn't vote for a woman. Right. And that, how could you vote for somebody that would tear you down before you vote for a woman and so on? I don't think that it was meant to be demeaning. I think it was meant to be a gut check. I don't know when we got so weak, back in the day, they would say, you're a pussy, right? I mean, I hate to go there, but I don't know when we got to the point where we can't tell anybody what's real and what's not, right? And so I don't mean to talk down to anybody. I don't mean to be lectury or anything like that, right? You need to go out and vote. If you don't want to vote for the top of the ticket, I'm not sure why, but that's fine. Vote and exercise your right to vote, right? Like Kia said, write in your name if you need to, and then vote down ballot for the things that matter to you or that you think might affect you. And if you don't think it will affect you, it will. It will. Most of us have daughters that might get pregnant. And I mean, what do you want that to look like for them? How many mothers do we need to have on TV crying about what happened to their daughters that was presentable, right? how many more children need to die in schools before we decide that we have skin in that game or anything like that? There's a million reasons for you to vote. I don't know what else to say other than please, pretty please with a cherry on top.
Liz, I'll put it out there, guys, from Unfiltered and Intentional to you. Liz does not have $1 million to give to anybody.
I can't give you $1 million. I can beg, please vote. And so, we got Charles. Charles answered the question. He said Kamala's going to win by a hair thread.
That's the crazy thing, Charles. Even like I said, even if it's by a hair thread, she wins. I think Trump he's not letting this go. He will not. Like if you thought Jet like that, and that's why I said I definitely want to have the show right after. So I think on November the 6th, we're gonna have a show because I have to have my popcorn. I mean, I have to have the popcorn ready. I remember January 6th when that girl, the veteran from the Air Force, jumped over all those men and that officer shot her. I mean, this is real time. And I was typing on the computer. I was working from home. And I was like, like this is happening in real time. I remember somebody was defecating right there on the step. Like people were losing their minds.
It was not okay.
I mean, yeah. So no, if it's, that this whole thing winning by a hair thread. Oh yeah, we're going to see some shit.
Okay, I think the audience took me calling them out a little bit to heart.
They thought you were going to give them $1 million. That's what it was.
They don't even know that at all. So, real quick, Cash said, if I had to bet my life, I would say Trump. Ouch. The Dems seem to be shedding a lot of minority and youth votes. I don't see how she picks up from whites like Biden did. Okay. Leslie said, I don't think we want to jinx it, but Kamala's going to win and she's going to run again and get another 4 years. She didn't want to jinx it, but she called up the next 8 years in a row. You see that? And then Nikisha said, I'm not sure who's going to win. I do feel like the country will be in a state of unrest for a while, regardless of which way the results fall. I agree. And not to be overly anxious, but I'm gonna go make sure my grocery and stuff is taken care of before election day. Just because.
I'll say this: I don't know where everybody lives. Wait, what? I was eating.
He was eating.
I was gonna say that I don't know where everybody lives. I don't know where some of you guys live, and Florida is a conservative state. And I actually, and I'll put it out there all up on social media, I knew one of the people that raided the Capitol on January 6th. And it's interesting, he would make comments prior, right, about the stand down and this. He never said he was going, but he would just always make comments. And I'd be like, I'm watching you. And I would, and yes, I'm putting it out there. I will always at the FBI just in case. I am that person. Don't tell me shit. I'm telling you right now, don't tell me shit. I'm at police.com. Yeah, anyway. So he was saying little funny things, whatever the case may be. And I'm like, what's really going on? And come to find out, somebody hit me up on the phone and they was like, yo, he was at the Capitol when they got stormed. And it's crazy because everybody now, we know we're hitting him up like, oh, he was there. And he was trying to play cool and this and the third. But here in Florida, I think he got 2 years. And if Trump does get elected, they said that they would pardon everybody that was affected. So he may be walking the streets. And he probably knows I was blasting him out. So if you see me barricading it up, people are like, oh,
you with the mustache and the glasses and the hat. I know.
Yeah, because I sure was at yeah.
I got you. Leslie said on the next show we should talk about the 6 amendments on Florida's ballot. So
yes, it's going to be a good one. Florida's a wild one. When I tell you Florida is a wild boy when it comes to how people react and what's on the ballots and all types of shit, it's wild. So, but definitely, please stay tuned. Get out there and vote. Like I said, bring somebody with you who don't got a car. Encourage early voting. Make it a day outing. You know what I'm saying? Yeah. Bring some drinks and chair or whatever the case may be, but just get out. Don't waste your vote. At the end of the day, so many people have died and suffered for you to make your voice count. I understand that there are people out there who feel like, you know what, it doesn't matter. But even if you feel the presidency doesn't matter, it does matter if a fucking road gets built in your community or a toxic plant gets placed on the side of the street or the judge who loves giving minorities, an extra 20 years gets put back into place.
Put
So
back into
don't
place,
squander
right.
your vote. Thank you so much. We will see you November the 6th.
Love you
Oh
guys.
my God, it's a nail biter. Who the fuck is gonna win? Oh, one last thing. Let me tell you real quick. I don't
Uh-oh.
smoke weed. I like to confide in y'all. I don't smoke weed. I used to smoke weed back in the day.
Mhm.
But when Trump had won the election, I was so angry. I was like, can I take a toke or something, please, somebody? And then it gave me more anxiety. My husband was like, just go to sleep, you're crazy. And I was like, oh, I don't want to do that again. I don't want to have to smoke or drink or do something crazy.
Just to get through the day. No.
If y'all, the man is fucking crazy, y'all. Please make the right decision when you vote.
Yes, please. Well, Charles, bon appetit, everybody else. Thanks for
Yes. I love you, Charles.
joining us.